Hi everyone, this is Professor Benjamin and you have made it through week 1 of this course. So this is what I call a roundup. So at the end of each week I'll either send you a roundup like this, which is in video format, or it will be in or I'll type out a roundup for you. The main point of the roundup is to wrap up last week and then give you a glimpse into the week ahead. The other important thing about roundups are that they give you some helpful feedback for the midterm and the final exam. Okay, so this is a 7-week session, and you know it's moving fast. And the 7-week sessions, of course, are 15 weeks worth of work condensed in 7 weeks. So that's why we have we cover 2 sessions each week. I know it's a lot of work. I understand. I've taken summer classes when I was in undergraduate school, so I get it. It's a lot of work. It's a considerable amount of time, but it's worth it because you get 3 credits in the end for such a condensed time period. So if you can just buckle down for 7 weeks, you can hopefully succeed in this course. So just a couple housekeeping items before I move into the content from Tragedy of the Commons week and then into this week, which is ethics, economics and policy, and consumption and waste. So housekeeping items. Number 1, too many of you are answering the same question. So only 6 of you can answer the same question. So I give you 6 questions. Only 6 students in the class can answer that same question. If not, you need to move to a different question. So it's absolutely essential that you log in early to get a question that you want to answer. A lot of times students say to me, well, I started writing out my answer and then the 6th person answered the question, so then that's not fair. Actually, it is. So if you see that's, already 5 people have answered a specific question and it's going to take you 2 hours to write up your initial post, then it would be best for you to pick a different question because maybe in that 2 hours someone else is going to post the answer. So this week I'm going to be really strict about the fact that I don't want more than 6 people answering each question. So I will penalize you with a 0 for your initial post. You can still get points for your response post, but your initial post will be a 0. So please take note of that. You can see already some students have gotten in and answered questions for next week already. That's because they're utilizing their time, their weekends, whatever their work schedule is, their life schedule is. They're utilizing that to their advantage. So that was, one thing. The other thing is this, is that you want to make sure that you are reading, some of you are answering your questions in a silo, meaning you're not like taking all of the information that I've given you and working on that. You're using too many outside sources and not enough of the sources I've given you. So make sure I'm giving you these sources for reasons, and a lot of them piggyback off of each other. So I could see that a lot of you shied away from any of the questions that had to do with Tragedy of the Commons by Garrett Hardin because you actually had to read an article, a 30-page article, and a lot of you were like, I'm not going to do that, or I didn't give myself enough time. It's absolutely essential because that article is the mainstay of almost all of the environmental issues that plague the world today. It is an article that's talked about in every environmental conservation class. He comes up all the time. So I want to briefly talk about that. Oh, one other thing, sorry. Don't forget about your quiz that's due tonight on the intro session. And a look ahead into next week. You have your initial posts due for consumption and waste and ethics, environmental, in economics and policy. You have 2 by Wednesday 11:59. You have response posts for each one of those forums due by Friday 11:59 next week, and you also have 2 quizzes due by the end of next week. Remember, the quizzes only relate to the chapter readings. They do not relate to the additional articles. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so the content for this session, which a lot had to do with the introduction, which dealt with positive and negative feedback loops. So you want to make sure you understand what a positive and negative feedback loop is. One of the main things you want to remember is that a positive feedback loop is actually a bad thing. A lot of times, we think positive means good, but in terms of environmental conservation, a positive feedback loop is what happens with that is it exacerbates the situation that's already on hand. A negative feedback loop is what tries to reverse the issue and bring it back to a homeostasis environment. The other thing is a lot of you did a great job answering the questions about uncertainty, the fact that we don't understand things, and when things are unfamiliar to us, we just don't want to learn them. The other situation is that, remember, simpler ecosystems in terms of this class are a bad thing. We want more biodiversity. The problem with the human race is that we try and compartmentalize everything instead of having tons of crops, we do monocrops. That's a big issue when it comes to fighting major problems throughout the world. So if something ever happened to our corn situation in the United States, almost all, including our economy, would probably fail. So the reason is that we have subsidized corn at such a high level that we now just grow mostly corn instead of other products. And you'll find out more about this when you watch the Food Incorporated film. So that's for the introduction session. The Tragedy Commons session, the article by Garrett Hardin, Tragedy Commons, is a fantastic article. Like I said, it's important. Short-term gains, humans have an inherent need for greed. So we look for our short-term gain rather than thinking about the long-term interests of society. So, hey, I want to throw a party this weekend. I'm going to use all disposable products. Well, we think about our party that weekend. We don't think about the fact that millions of other people are probably throwing parties that weekend too, and all using disposable products, and then they all end up in a landfill and they don't biodegrade, right? So over time, what happens is the fact that now we have a garbage problem in the world because you continually use disposable products because we're thinking about our short-term gain, which is how can I get through this weekend rather than what the long-term interests of society are. So that's Tragedy Commons. Garrett Hardin really gives a good description of this in his article. He talks about the William Foster Lloyd article, which, remember, William Foster Lloyd wrote this in the 1800s, and he used the pasture scenario. So the fact that, everyone added a sheep, and then what happened was the ecosystem declined. But people weren't thinking about that. They were thinking about making their own money from the sheep now. The issues with this is that we have added technical solutions. So we've tried to solve this through technical solutions. One's privatization, one is mutual corrosion, one is a welfare state. We've tried to do this, but none of those technical solutions have ever worked. They all have problems to them. All these technical solutions have issues to them. And Garrett Hardin explains those issues with those technical solutions in his article. So make sure you read that article. One of the big things with privatization is, number one, if things are privatized, usually that private company is looking for a monetary gain. Well, guess what? Then usually, almost all the time, they're looking to profit. When you're looking to profit from something, then you look for your short-term needs rather than long-term interests. The other thing is when we privatize something, is it a commons anymore? So if we privatize national parks and charge people to come in, even if it's a nominal fee, we're excluding certain populations that can't afford that, which means it becomes a social justice issue. We want everyone to have access to national parks, but when we start charging people enormous amounts of money, we're excluding people from national parks. And this is a big problem because if we want social justice, then we need to start thinking about this at every level. And this is one of my big pleas is national parks are expensive to get into. And I think it really declines people's use of national parks. I know we need to pay for them, and to pay for the upkeep, I don't know what that solution is. Of course, I would say raise taxes, but I know there's a lot of other complications to that as well, because then there's another social justice issue. So these issues are things that we need to discuss, and we need to look at everybody's point of view and discuss them as a whole. Okay, so that's Tragedy of the Commons. Moving forward this week, so I want to spend some time on this week, we're going to cover ethics, economics, and policy, and we're going to cover consumption and waste. So I'm just going to, there is an internet connection. You got to be kidding me. I'm at my house. There's an internet connection. I apologize. Let me see if I can get on here, and I'm going to connect to my internet connection. Sorry. So here's one of the things that I want. Oh my goodness, please tell me what is going on? Sorry, I was out earlier today working on work, and okay, please tell me there's internet. So one of the things that, so let's do this, modules. Okay, so here it is. So we're going to be on ethics, economics, and policy. And here you go, pricing the priceless. Yes, I know, my kids play these games. So pricing the priceless, a cost-benefit analysis for environmental protection. Great article. It's a little long, but it's going to talk to you about what we call cost-benefit analysis. So how we look at whether it's worth implementing a policy or not. Remember, we're not going to save everybody. So we look at what's the most cost-effective way to implement a policy that's going to save the most lives. It doesn't mean everybody's life counts. And I know that's hard to hear, but that's the truth. The story of cap and trade. So this is a way that we've tried to implement where we implement where there's a cap, and then what we do is a cap on pollution, and then you sell those trades on a market. So you almost sell your credits on a market. So if you decrease your pollution, then you can sell whatever you decrease by the limit, and you can sell those on the market and someone else can buy them. And then it creates almost like a stock system for environmental pollution. There's a lot of problems with it, but there's a lot of pros to it, and the story of cap and trade talks about that. We also are going to talk about environmental injustice this week, which is one of my big issues. It's very close to my heart. I worked on a couple cases in Camden when I worked for New Jersey DEP on how, unfortunately, residents in Camden they put a sewage treatment plant in their town that was originally slated for a predominantly white town, and I fought and helped fight for these people of Camden. Unfortunately, they did, of course, won a settlement, but it still never solved the problem that their entire area smells like human feces and waste. And it's something that has still keeps me up at night some nights. So environmental injustice is the issue that a lot of times, because of people's lack of education, lack of income, lack of time, a lot of times they are taken advantage of. And when we talk about fracking, we'll talk about that in terms of actually a white population that is environmental justice is occurring too. All right, so we have these, and then the next week, the second session that we cover is waste. And of course, this is one of my big things, is consumption. We consume so much in America. It's so bad. So the peer-to-peer rental, so sharing items, sharing Uber instead of everyone buying a car. In my town, we have a swap and sell where we can swap items with other people so we don't have to buy them. And so it's this whole idea of a share renting economy instead of everyone owning the same item. Instead, why not have one and then share it? The Story of Stuff is a fantastic video. You need to watch it. It's 20 minutes long. Consumption environment is a long article, but if you just read little pieces of it here and there, you'll get an idea of what the social consequences are of us and our consumption mentality here in the United States. We've created havoc throughout the world, especially in third world countries. And so this is a big issue. Consumption by happiness, evidence from the United States. This is a really good article. It's going to talk about the fact that leisure items bring happiness more than money does. Also, cars do, and one of the main reasons that cars bring happiness is because they actually allow us to have more social connectiveness, because then we don't have to rely on public transportation, etc. So this is a wonderful article to talk about that we increase happiness until, I think it's about $75,000. So once people, and I can't say this is totally true, but it is what the scientific evidence has said, is that when people meet their basic needs, after that, most people don't see an increase in happiness with their wage increase. In fact, what happens is people want more, and then they want more, and then they want more. And so this is a fantastic article talking about that. So you can see the 2 weeks we're covering a lot of information. I'll give you more of a good roundup at the end of next week, and then I'll look forward into the upcoming week. I want you to look here though, under session 5 is a review for the midterm. It's available now, so you might as well print it out, and then you can start writing out answers for the midterm exam, and you'll see that a lot of the questions that we talk about are reiterated on the midterm exam review. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I hope you have a wonderful week. And so this week, remember, you have your initial posts due for session 3 and 4. You have response posts due for them, and then you're going to have quizzes at the end of the week on those 2 sessions. Take your time, read the information, give yourself some time to process the information and read and comprehend and understand the material. I know that's easier said than done. Believe me, my life is chaotic too. I completely understand. But just give it your best, 7 weeks, okay? Remember, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and have a wonderful week.